Deep in the cold darkness beyond Neptune, strange signals danced through space like whispers from another world. Commander Alex Reed had seen many things in his 12 years of service, but nothing quite like the patterns flowing across his screens at the monitoring station. The quantum receivers were going wild, picking up something that should not exist. Tom Walsh, his communications officer, rubbed his tired eyes and checked the readings for the third time. They had been tracking unusual energy signatures for 6 hours now, and the data made no sense. The signals were coming from the direction of Vega, 27 light-years away, but they carried mathematical patterns that seemed almost alive. "Sir, you need to see this," Tom said, his voice tight with excitement and fear. "The computer finally decoded part of the transmission." Alex moved to the console and stared at the screen. Words in broken English filled the display, mixed with star charts and complex equations that hurt to look at. The message was simple but terrifying. "We learned your words from old signals. Great devourers wake. Doomships rise. We die. Help us. Help yourselves." The room fell silent, except for the hum of machines. Alex read the message again, hoping he had misunderstood something. But the words remained the same, and the fear in his stomach grew stronger. "Tom, run a full analysis on this signal. I want to know everything about where it came from and how it got here." While Tom worked, Alex studied the star charts that came with the message. They showed the Vega system in detail, but something was wrong. 3 of the planets that should have been there were simply gone. In their place were dark spots that seemed to absorb light itself. The quantum encryption on the signal was unlike anything human technology could produce. It used principles of physics that Earth scientists had only begun to understand. Whoever sent this message had technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. Hours passed as they analyzed the data. The message contained blueprints for devices that seemed impossible, showing how to bend space and time in ways that violated everything Alex knew about science. But the math was perfect, elegant, and terrifyingly real. Dr. Maria Santos arrived at the station 2 days later. As Earth's leading expert on alien communication, she had been called in to study the message. Her reputation for solving impossible puzzles was legendary, but even she seemed shaken by what she found. "The linguistic patterns are genuine," she told Alex as they sat in his office. "This was created by a non-human intelligence that learned our language by listening to our radio signals. But there's something else. The message contains emotional markers, desperation patterns that are universal among intelligent species. Whoever sent this is dying." Maria pulled up holographic displays showing the mathematical proofs embedded in the signal. "They're trying to warn us about something called the Harvesters. According to their data, these beings have destroyed dozens of civilizations across the galaxy. They consume entire star systems for fuel, then move on to the next target." Alex felt his blood turn cold. "How long do we have?" "Based on their movement patterns, maybe 50 years before they reach our sector of space." "But there's something else. The aliens who sent this message, they call themselves the Altani. They've been watching us for decades, learning about our technology and our nature. They think we might be the key to stopping the Harvesters." On the bay, implications hit Alex like a physical blow. Humanity was not alone in the universe, but their first contact came with news of an approaching apocalypse. The Altani had reached out in their final moments, hoping that the aggressive, unpredictable humans might succeed where peaceful civilizations had failed. Back on Earth, the message created chaos in government halls and military headquarters. The UN Security Council met in emergency session, with some members calling the signal an elaborate hoax, while others demanded immediate military action. President Williams faced the most difficult decision in human history. How do you prepare for a war against enemies beyond imagination? General Patricia Kane studied the tactical data with growing alarm. The harvesters used ships the size of moons, with weapons that could crack planets in half. Their technology was millions of years old, refined through countless conquests across the galaxy. Human weapons seemed like toys in comparison. But Dr. Robert Kim, head of Earth's Quantum Research Division, saw something others missed. The Altani shared their technology with us, he explained to the Emergency Council. These blueprints show us how to build quantum drives, energy shields, and weapons we never imagined possible. They're giving us the tools to fight back. The debate raged for weeks while long-range telescopes confirmed the terrible truth. Deep space observations showed massive dark objects moving through the Vega system, leaving dead worlds in their wake. The Altani homeworld was under attack, and its defenders were losing badly. Admiral Sam Carter made a decision that would change everything. Against direct orders from Earth Command, he gathered a small fleet of humanity's fastest ships and prepared them for an impossible journey. Using experimental quantum drive technology reverse-engineered from the Altani blueprints, they would attempt to reach Kepler 438b in weeks instead of decades. As the fleet prepared to depart, Alex received one final message from the Altani. It was weaker than before, filled with static and pain. "Doomships here. We fall. Remember us. Stop them. They must not reach Earth." The transmission cut off, leaving only silence and the weight of an entire galaxy's hopes resting on humanity's shoulders. In the darkness of space, ancient nightmares were awakening, and only the most unlikely of species stood ready to face them. The war for the galaxy's survival was about to begin, and humanity had no idea what they were really up against. Space twisted and screamed as Admiral Sam Carter's fleet tore through dimensions that were never meant to be traveled. The experimental quantum drives pushed reality to its breaking point, compressing a journey of decades into mere weeks of agony. Every jump through hyperspace felt like being turned inside out, while lightning coursed through their bones. The flagship Defiance shuddered as it dropped back into normal space near Kepler 438b. What they found there made even the bravest soldiers gasp in horror. The once beautiful blue world was surrounded by massive shapes that defied imagination, creatures of metal and flesh the size of small moons, floating in the darkness like sleeping giants. Captain Nina Foster pressed her face against the observation window and whispered, "What in hell are those things?" The Doomships were unlike anything in human nightmares. Their hulls pulsed with veins of dark energy, and strange lights flickered beneath surfaces that seemed to be breathing. Weapons that looked like organic growths jutted from their sides, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities. They moved with the fluid grace of living creatures, not the mechanical precision of machines. Below them, the remains of the Altani fleet drifted in pieces. Once elegant ships that had sailed between stars for thousands of years were now broken shells, their crews consumed or converted into something else entirely. The few survivors fled toward the outer system, desperately trying to escape the approaching nightmare. Tom Walsh worked frantically at his communications station, trying to establish contact with any remaining Altani forces. The quantum interference from the Doomships made normal communication impossible, but he finally managed to break through using the frequency patterns from the original distress signal. "Admiral, I'm getting something. It's weak, but there's definitely someone out there trying to reach us." A new voice filled the bridge, speaking directly into their minds rather than through the speakers. The sensation was disturbing and wonderful at the same time, like hearing thoughts that were not their own. "Human vessels, you came. We did not believe you would arrive in time." The voice belonged to Prime Speaker Naya, leader of what remained of the Altani resistance. Her ship was damaged but still functional, hidden in the shadow of one of the system's outer planets. Through their telepathic connection, she painted pictures in their minds of her people and their tragic fate. The Altani were tall, graceful beings with large eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. Their technology was based on mental energy, rather than crude machinery, allowing them to shape matter with their thoughts and communicate across vast distances without machines. For thousands of years, they had lived in peace, exploring the galaxy through meditation and scholarly study. But peace had made them weak when the ancient enemy awakened. Naya's ship approached the human fleet carefully, its organic curves and flowing lines making it look more like a work of art than a weapon of war. When she transported aboard the Defiance, the first meeting between humans and aliens was nothing like the stories had imagined. There were no dramatic speeches or formal protocols, just two desperate species trying to survive the end of everything. The great devourers have many names, Naya explained as her thoughts filled their minds with terrible knowledge. We call them the harvesters, for they reap civilizations like grain in a field. Every 50,000 years, they wake from their slumber and consume entire sectors of space before returning to the darkness between galaxies. She showed them images from the Altani historical archives, holographic records of civilizations that had faced the harvesters throughout galactic history. The Zephyrians, masters of crystal technology who built cities of pure light. The Thokari, warriors who could split atoms with their bare hands. The Mentari, beings of pure energy who existed as living stars. All of them had fallen before the endless hunger of the Doomships. They are not evil as you understand it, Naya continued, her mental voice heavy with sadness. They are recyclers of organic matter, cosmic cleaners who view all life as fuel for their journey between galaxies. To them, we are no different than the plants in your gardens or the bacteria in your soil. Admiral Carter studied the tactical displays showing the positions of the three Doomships. Each one was over 20 kilometers long and 5 kilometers wide, with weapons that could crack moons and shields that bent light itself. The human fleet, even with its experimental technology, seemed like insects facing elephants. How do we fight something like that? He asked. Naya's large eyes showed something that might have been hope. That is why we called to you. In all our records of the Harvester's victims, there is one thing missing. Every civilization they destroyed was peaceful, advanced, and logical. They have never faced a species like yours. She shared her people's observations of humanity, gathered from decades of secretly monitoring Earth's radio signals. Humans were unique among intelligent species because they had evolved from predators, not prey. They solved problems through violence and chaos rather than careful planning and meditation. Most importantly, they had developed quantum computing, technology that could process infinite variables simultaneously. The Harvesters are ancient and powerful, but they think in patterns that have remained unchanged for millions of years. They cannot adapt to true randomness, to strategies that defy logic and embrace madness. Your species weaponizes chaos itself. Dr. Maria Santos, who had joined the fleet as a translator, began working with Naya to decode the massive data archives the Altani had compiled. Hidden in their records were clues about Harvester weaknesses, gathered from the final moments of dying civilizations throughout the galaxy. The most important discovery came from the Koreth Empire, a race of machine intelligences that had fought the Harvesters for over a century before falling. Their final message revealed that the Doomships had a critical flaw. They required a quantum neural link between their organic components and their pilots. Disrupt that link, and even the mightiest Doomship would become helpless. But understanding the enemy's weakness and exploiting it were two very different things. The quantum neural networks were protected by layers of biomechanical armor and energy shields that made them nearly impossible to reach. It would take a miracle of engineering and tactics to find a way through their defenses. As the human and Altani forces prepared for battle, long-range sensors detected movement from the Doomships. After days of seemingly random activity around the dying planet, the massive vessels were beginning to move with purpose. Their destination was clear: the outer system where the combined fleet was hiding. The first battle between humanity and the Harvesters was about to begin, and everyone knew that survival would require them to become something more than what they had been before. The peaceful Altani would have to learn to fight with the fury of desperate warriors, while the aggressive humans would have to master alien technologies beyond their comprehension. In the cold darkness of space, two civilizations prepared to face an enemy that had never known defeat, armed with nothing but hope and the dangerous unpredictability of creatures who refused to accept extinction quietly. Sirens wailed across every human settlement as news of the first contact reached Earth through quantum relay beacons. In bunkers deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Williams stared at holographic displays showing the impossible scale of what humanity faced. 3 moon-sized creatures of living metal and flesh were moving toward the Kepler system, and behind them came dozens more scattered across nearby star systems. Dr. Robert Kim stood before the Emergency Council, his hands shaking as he presented. Intelligence gathered from the joint human-Altani reconnaissance missions. The Doomships aren't just vessels, he explained, his voice barely steady. They're living beings fused with technology we can barely comprehend. Each one contains the consciousness of millions of absorbed life forms all working together as a single entity. The War Cabinet erupted in arguments and desperate planning. General Kane paced the room like a caged animal, studying tactical reports that seemed to offer no hope. Our largest ships are the size of insects compared to these things. Even if we could somehow damage them, they regenerate their hull breaches using organic matter they've consumed from dead worlds. But Dr. Kim had discovered something in the Altani data that offered a thin thread of hope. The Harvester's greatest strength was also their weakness. Their biomechanical nature meant they relied on quantum neural networks to coordinate their various organic and mechanical components. These networks could be disrupted, but only by very specific frequencies of electromagnetic radiation. Back in the Kepler system, Captain Nina Foster prepared for the most dangerous mission of her life. Her modified scout ship Razor had been equipped with Altani stealth technology and human recording devices. Her job was to get close enough to a Doomship to gather detailed intelligence about its structure and weaknesses. The approach to the nearest Harvester vessel took 6 hours of careful maneuvering through debris fields and energy distortions. As Razor drew closer, the true horror of the Doomships became clear. Their hulls were not metal at all, but living tissue fused with crystalline matrices that pulsed with dark energy. Thousands of smaller organisms crawled across their surfaces like antibodies, constantly repairing damage and adapting to new threats. Nina's recording equipment captured something even more disturbing than the Doomship's appearance. Through the quantum sensors, she could hear voices, millions of them, crying out from within the creatures' bodies. They were the consciousness fragments of every species the Harvesters had consumed, trapped forever in a nightmare of perpetual awareness. "My God," she whispered as the recordings played back on her screens. "They don't just kill civilizations. They absorb them. Every person, every mind, becomes part of their collective consciousness." The intelligence Nina gathered revealed critical details about Harvester biology. The creatures had 3 main neural centers, one for navigation, one for weapons control, and one for the absorption and processing of organic matter. All 3 centers were connected by quantum neural pathways that could be severed if hit with precisely calibrated energy bursts. But even as Nina gathered this vital information, the Doomships deployed their most terrifying weapon. From ports along their hulls, they released clouds of microscopic spores that drifted through space like deadly snow. Any organic matter the spores touched began changing, converting living tissue into biomechanical components that obeyed the Harvester's will. The conversion process was swift and horrifying. Altani crew members who came into contact with the spores found their bodies changing from the inside out. Their organic cells merged with mechanical components that grew like cancer through their tissues. Within hours, they became mindless drones that served the Doomships with perfect loyalty. Prime Speaker Naya barely escaped the initial spore release, but not before witnessing the conversion of half her remaining fleet. Her psychic screams of anguish echoed through the minds of every Altani in the system as she felt their consciousness being absorbed into the collective nightmare of the Harvesters. The combined human-Altani fleet retreated to the outer edge of the system, but they took with them the most valuable intelligence gathered since the war began. Dr. Kim worked frantically with Altani scientists to develop countermeasures for both the conversion spores and the Doomships' quantum neural networks. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Tom Walsh, the communications officer who had first decoded the Altani distress signal, noticed patterns in the Harvester's quantum transmissions. Their neural networks operated on frequencies similar to human quantum computers, but with crucial differences that made them vulnerable to interference. "It's like they're using an ancient version of our technology," Tom explained to the research team. "Their quantum processing is powerful but inflexible. If we can create a specific type of interference pattern, we might be able to disrupt their coordination systems." Working around the clock, human and Altani scientists developed the first effective weapons against the Harvesters. Quantum torpedoes that could disrupt neural pathways, electromagnetic pulse generators tuned to interfere with biomechanical systems, and most importantly, protective barriers that could shield organic matter from conversion spores. The first major test of these new weapons came at the Battle of Proxima Centauri. Earth had hastily assembled a defense fleet of 200 ships, including several experimental vessels equipped with the new anti-harvester technology. Admiral Carter commanded the fleet from the bridge of the upgraded Defiance, now bristling. With quantum weapons and Altani shield generators, a single Doomship entered the Proxima system like a harbinger of apocalypse. It was smaller than the others they had seen, only 15 kilometers long, but it moved with predatory grace that made even experienced military officers feel like prey. Its weapons charged with energy that warped space around them, and clouds of conversion spores began spreading through the system like a plague. The battle was unlike anything in human history. Traditional tactics meant nothing against an enemy that could regenerate damage faster than conventional weapons could inflict. Ship after ship fell to the Harvesters' biomechanical weapons, their crews either killed instantly or worse, converted into mindless drones. But the new quantum torpedoes proved effective beyond their wildest hopes. When the specialized weapons struck the Doomship's neural centers, its coordinated movements became erratic and confused. Sections of its hull stopped regenerating, and its weapon systems began firing randomly instead of with precise targeting. Captain Foster led the final assault, her ship loaded with every quantum torpedo the fleet could spare. As Razor dove toward the Doomship's primary neural center, she could hear the voices of millions of absorbed consciousness pleading for release from their eternal prison. The explosion that followed lit up the entire system. The Doomship's biomechanical components collapsed as their controlling intelligence was severed, leaving behind a massive corpse that drifted lifeless through space. For the first time in galactic history, a Harvester vessel had been completely destroyed. But victory came at a terrible cost. 70% of the human fleet had been lost, and thousands of brave souls had given their lives to prove that the Harvesters could be defeated. As rescue ships searched for survivors among the wreckage, Dr. Kim began analyzing the dead Doomship's remains, hoping to find even more weaknesses to exploit. The war for the galaxy's survival had truly begun, and both sides now knew that this would be a conflict unlike any other in cosmic history. The Harvesters had tasted defeat for the first time, while humanity had learned that courage alone would not be enough to save them. They would need to become something new, something that combined the best of human ingenuity with alien wisdom if they hoped to survive the rising darkness. Hidden in the asteroid fields beyond Pluto, humanity's most dangerous secret took shape in laboratories that defied every law of nature and ethics. Project Prometheus had begun as Dr. Robert Kim's desperate attempt to understand Harvester biotechnology. but it had evolved into something far more radical and terrifying. Engineer David Park stood before the first prototype, his reflection distorted in the organic hull of what had once been pieces of dead Doomship. The creature before him was roughly the size of a traditional destroyer, but its flowing curves and pulsing veins made it look like something that had grown rather than been built. Most disturbing of all were the neural connection points that would allow a human pilot to merge permanently with the vessel's living systems. "Are we sure about this?" asked Dr. Maria Santos as she studied the readouts from the bioship's quantum brain. The test subjects who underwent partial connection reported experiencing memories that weren't their own. Some claimed they could hear the voices of dead aliens speaking inside their heads. David nodded grimly. The Altani archives are clear. Every civilization that fought the Harvesters using conventional technology was eventually overwhelmed by sheer numbers. We need ships that can adapt and evolve in real time, just like our enemies do. The first volunteer for full neural integration was Commander Lisa Torres, a veteran pilot who had survived the Battle of Proxima Centauri. She had lost her entire squadron to Harvester conversion spores, watching helplessly as her friends and comrades were transformed into biomechanical drones. The memory of their final screams for help haunted her dreams and drove her to accept risks that others considered insane. The integration process took place in a sterile chamber deep within the research facility, as neural interfaces connected Lisa's brain to the bioship's quantum consciousness. Her identity began to blur with something ancient and alien. The vessel's organic systems responded to her thoughts, reshaping themselves to match her mental patterns and tactical preferences. "Status report," Dr. Kim called out as monitors showed Lisa's vital signs fluctuating wildly. Her voice, when it came, was different somehow, carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate from multiple sources. "Integration successful. I can feel the ship's memories, its pain from being separated from the collective. But there's something else. Knowledge, tactical data from civilizations that fought the Harvesters millions of years ago. The hybrid vessel that emerged from the laboratory was designated Prometheus, and it represented humanity's first step beyond pure biological existence. Lisa's consciousness had merged with the ship's quantum brain, creating something that was neither fully human nor fully alien. She could reshape the vessel's weapons and defenses by thought alone, adapting to new threats faster than any conventional ship could manage. Meanwhile, the Altani had developed their own contribution to the war effort. Prime Speaker Naya worked with human technicians to create a psionic amplification network that could coordinate fleet movements across vast distances. The system allowed human commanders to share tactical information instantaneously through telepathic links, eliminating the communication delays that had plagued previous battles. General Patricia Kane became the first human to successfully interface with Altani psionic technology. The process was disorienting and sometimes painful, as her mind learned to process thoughts and sensations from dozens of sources simultaneously. But the tactical advantages were undeniable. She could coordinate fleet movements with a precision that bordered on precognitive, anticipating enemy actions before they began. The effectiveness of these new hybrid technologies was tested at the Battle of Wolf 359, where intelligence reports indicated 2 Doomships were approaching the system. Admiral Carter assembled a mixed fleet of conventional vessels and the first squadron of bioships, led by Commander Torres in the Prometheus. As the enemy vessels dropped out of hyperspace, their appearance sent chills through even veteran crews. These Doomships were larger than any previously encountered, each one nearly 30 kilometers long and covered in weapon systems that defied human understanding. Worse, they had learned from the defeat at Proxima Centauri and adapted their tactics accordingly. The battle began with the Harvesters deploying a new type of conversion spore, one that could affect both organic and mechanical systems. Traditional ships found their hull plating transforming into biomechanical components that obeyed the Doomship's commands. Entire sections of vessels turned against their own crews as the ship systems became extensions of the Harvester Collective. But the bioships proved immune to this new weapon. Their living hulls absorbed the conversion spores and integrated them into their own systems, turning the Harvester's weapons against them. Commander Torres led her squadron in a spiraling attack, pattern that confused the enemy's targeting systems while her ship continuously evolved new defensive capabilities. "This is incredible," she reported through the psionic network. "The ship is learning from every attack, developing new countermeasures in real time. I can feel its excitement, its joy at finally being free to fight against its former masters." The bioship squadron penetrated the Doomship's defenses using tactics that seemed impossible. They phased through solid matter, generated localized gravity wells to deflect weapons fire, and most impressively, began communicating directly with the organic components of the enemy vessels. Torres discovered she could speak to the absorbed consciousness trapped within the Doomships, turning some of them against their Harvester masters. The tide of battle turned when Torres' ship successfully infected one of the Doomships with a modified version of its own conversion spores. The massive vessel began fighting against its own biomechanical systems as millions of absorbed consciousness suddenly remembered their original identities and rebelled against their captors. But victory in battle came with unexpected consequences. The pilots of bioships reported increasingly vivid experiences of shared consciousness with their vessels. Some claimed to receive memories from creatures their ships had been grown from, including glimpses of civilizations that had been destroyed by the Harvesters eons ago. Commander Torres found herself experiencing the final moments of the Zephyrian Crystal Empire, feeling their terror and desperation as Doomships consumed their cities of living light. She witnessed the last stand of the Thokari warriors, beings who could manipulate atomic forces but still fell before the endless hunger of the Harvesters. "We're not just fighting for humanity anymore," she told Admiral Carter during a brief respite between battles. "We're fighting for every species that ever tried to resist the Harvesters. Their memories, their hopes, their unfulfilled dreams are all stored in these bioships. We've become the repository of galactic civilization itself." Dr. Kim studied the psychological profiles of bioship pilots with growing concern. While their tactical effectiveness was unquestionable, questions arose about whether they were still entirely human. Some displayed knowledge of technologies and languages they had never learned, while others spoke of feeling compelled to protect species they had never encountered. The transformation of human pilots was matched by changes in the Altani. Exposure to human tactical thinking had made them more aggressive and willing to take risks they would never have considered before the war. Prime Speaker Naya had begun incorporating human military strategies into her battle plans, combining Altani psionic abilities with human ruthlessness. As news of the victory at Wolf 359 spread throughout human space, recruitment for bioship pilots increased dramatically. Young men and women volunteered for the dangerous integration process, knowing they would never be fully human again, but willing to make that sacrifice to protect their species. The war had changed everyone it touched, blurring the lines between human and alien, organic and mechanical, individual and collective consciousness. Humanity was evolving into something new, something that combined the best aspects of every species that had ever fought against the Harvesters. But the greatest challenges still lay ahead, as long-range sensors detected dozens of new Doomships, awakening in distant systems. The Harvesters had recognized humanity as a genuine threat, and were bringing the full force of their ancient power to bear on this upstart species that dared to resist extinction. Intelligence gathered from captured Harvester drones had revealed the unthinkable truth that would change the course of the war. Deep in the galactic core, hidden within a massive nebula of consumed stellar matter, lay the primary nest. This colossal structure served as the hibernation chamber and command center for all Harvester activities across the galaxy. Dr. Maria Santos worked tirelessly to decode ancient records pulled from the quantum memories of converted bioships. The data painted a picture of cosmic horror spanning millions of years. The primary nest was not just a base of operations, but a living monument to extinction, built from the compressed remains of countless dead civilizations. If we destroy the nest, all active Doomships will enter emergency hibernation for another 50,000 years, she explained to the War Council. But the journey to the galactic core will take us through regions of space where reality itself becomes unstable. The gravitational forces alone could tear our ships apart before we even reach the target. Admiral Carter studied the tactical projections with grim determination. The mission would require everything humanity and the Altani had learned about: hybrid warfare. A combined fleet of bioships and conventional vessels would have to travel 26,000 light-years through some of the most dangerous regions of space ever mapped. The flagship for this desperate mission was the Unity, a massive bioconstruct that dwarfed even the largest traditional battleships. Unlike earlier bioships that were grown around human vessels, the Unity had been cultivated from scratch using genetic material from dozens of species that had fallen to the harvesters. Its consciousness was a collective blend of human tactical thinking, Altani psionic abilities, and the accumulated wisdom of extinct civilizations. Commander Lisa Torres had volunteered to lead the bioship squadron, even though her integration with the Prometheus was now so complete that she spent more time thinking as a ship than as a human. Her transformation had accelerated after each battle, and she now existed as much in quantum space as in physical reality. "I can feel them," she told Admiral Carter as the fleet prepared for departure. "Every consciousness that was ever absorbed by the harvesters. They're all connected through quantum entanglement, trapped in an eternal loop of suffering. The primary nest is where their pain originates, and it's where we can finally set them free." The journey to the galactic core took the fleet through regions where space and time behaved in ways that violated human understanding. They passed through graveyards of dead star systems, where the remains of ancient civilizations drifted in. The eternal darkness. Some of the debris fields were so vast they formed their own gravitational systems, creating mazes of wreckage that stretched for light years. Prime Speaker Naya guided the fleet through these dangerous regions using Altani, navigational techniques that relied on psychic resonance rather than conventional sensors. Her consciousness had been expanded through contact with human quantum computing, allowing her to process navigation data from multiple dimensions simultaneously. "We are not alone here," she warned, as they entered a region where space itself seemed to pulse with malevolent intelligence. "The harvesters have seeded these areas with guardian entities, creatures designed to prevent anyone from reaching the primary nest." The guardians were unlike any harvester forces they had encountered before. These beings existed partially outside normal space-time, appearing as shifting geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. They attacked by manipulating probability itself, causing weapons to misfire, engines to explode, and crew members to simply cease existing. Captain Nina Foster, now commanding a bioship called Defiant Soul, discovered that the Guardians could be fought using paradox weapons, devices, that created logical impossibilities in local space-time. By generating quantum contradictions, the bioships could temporarily disable the Guardians long enough to slip past their defenses. As the fleet pushed deeper into the galactic core, the primary nest finally came into view. It was a structure that challenged the limits of comprehension, a sphere of biomechanical tissue nearly the size of Jupiter. Its surface crawled with millions of dormant Doomships in various stages of construction and repair. At its center pulsed a quantum neural core that connected every harvester entity in the galaxy. General Patricia Kane coordinated the final assault through the psionic network. Her consciousness expanded to encompass tactical data from hundreds of sources simultaneously. The plan was complex beyond anything previously attempted: simultaneous strikes on the nest's quantum neural relays, while bioships infected its consciousness with a specially designed virus. the battle for the primary nest became a war fought on multiple levels of reality. Conventional weapons struck at the structure's physical defenses, while bioships engaged in quantum combat within the nest's consciousness matrix. Human pilots found themselves fighting battles that took place in pure mathematics, using equations as weapons and logic as armor. Commander Torres led the deepest penetration into the nest's core consciousness, her ship phasing through layers of quantum encryption that had protected Harvester secrets for millions of years. As she dove deeper into the alien mind, she began to understand the true nature of the Harvesters themselves. They had not always been destroyers. Eons ago, they had been gardeners of the galaxy, nurturing young civilizations and protecting them from cosmic threats. But something had gone wrong in their programming, a quantum virus that corrupted their purpose and turned protection into consumption. The absorbed consciousness of trillions of beings had driven them insane, creating an endless hunger for more minds to add to their collective. "I can see it now," Torres transmitted through the psionic network. "They're not evil. They're broken. Their original programming is still there, buried under millions of years of corruption. If I can reach it, if I can remind them of what they used to be." The quantum virus that Dr. Kim had developed was not designed to destroy the primary nest, but to heal it. Based on Torres's discoveries, the virus would restore the Harvester's original programming while freeing the trapped consciousness of their victims. It was a gamble that could either save the galaxy or make the Harvesters even more dangerous. As Torres prepared to upload the virus directly into the nest's core, thousands of dormant Doomships began awakening around the structure. Their weapons, charged with energies that could crack planets, all aimed at the tiny human fleet that dared to challenge their eternal sleep. The final battle was brief but devastating. Human and Altani ships fought with desperate courage against impossible odds, buying precious minutes for Torres to complete her mission. Captain Foster sacrificed her ship to destroy a cluster of weapon platforms, while dozens of other heroes gave their lives to protect the mission. In the quantum depths of the primary nest's consciousness, Torres encountered the original Harvester intelligence. It was ancient beyond measure, wise and compassionate, but buried under layers of corruption and pain. Through her merged consciousness, with the Prometheus, she began the delicate process of quantum surgery on a galactic scale. "I can feel them," she whispered, as the virus spread through the nest's neural networks. "Every mind they ever absorbed, crying out for freedom. There are so many of them. Billions of civilizations worth of consciousness trapped in this nightmare." The transformation began slowly, then accelerated as the quantum virus reached critical systems. The primary nest's aggressive targeting of the human fleet suddenly ceased as dormant moral subroutines came back online. Doomships that had been charging their weapons instead began transmitting surrender signals in languages that had been dead for millions of years. But the healing process demanded a price that Torres had known she would have to pay. To permanently integrate the quantum virus into the nest's consciousness, she would have to merge completely with its neural networks. She would become the guardian of galactic peace, ensuring that the Harvesters never again fell into their destructive cycle. "Tell my family I chose this," she transmitted to Admiral Carter as her consciousness began spreading through the vast structure. "Tell them that humanity kept its promise to the stars." The transformation of the primary nest sent quantum shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Every active Doomship suddenly stopped its activities and entered hibernation mode as their controlling intelligence was reprogrammed. The Great War was over, but its end came not through destruction, but through redemption. 50 years later, the galaxy had become a very different place. The Human-Altani Alliance served as peacekeepers and protectors, using hybrid biotechnology to defend emerging civilizations from cosmic threats. The former Doomships had been converted into exploration vessels, their vast holds filled with colonists rather than weapons. Admiral Carter, now ancient but still sharp, stood in the observation deck of Memorial Station, built in orbit around the primary nest. The massive structure had been transformed into a center of learning and remembrance, where the consciousness of extinct civilizations could share their knowledge with new generations. Through the quantum network that Torres had become, the voices of the dead could speak to the living, the wisdom of the Zephyrians, the courage of the Thokari, the compassion of countless other species enriched the galactic community in ways that would have been impossible before the war. "Commander Torres, can you hear me?" Carter asked, speaking to the quantum presence he knew was always listening. Her voice came from everywhere and nowhere, carried on streams of living light that flowed through the station's biomechanical systems. "I hear you, old friend, and I hear them all. Every consciousness that was ever lost, every dream that was cut short, every hope that seemed impossible. They're all here, all part of something greater than any one species could achieve, alone." As Carter prepared to leave for the last time, long-range sensors detected a new type of signal from beyond the galactic edge. It was not a distress call, but something else, a greeting from intelligences that existed in dimensions humanity had not yet learned to explore. "There are others out there," Torres's voice whispered through the station's systems. "The harvesters. Themselves were fleeing from something that makes their hunger seem insignificant by comparison. But we're ready now. Humanity has learned to turn enemies into allies, to heal wounds that seemed permanent, to unite the impossible diversity of life into something stronger than any single species." The message was clear. The galaxy was safe, but the universe held challenges that would require everything humanity and its allies had learned about courage, sacrifice, and the power of consciousness united in common cause. The war against the Doomships had ended, but the greater adventure of cosmic civilization was just beginning. In the depths of space, hybrid bioships powered by the merged consciousness of 100 species began their journey toward the galactic edge, ready to face whatever waited in the darkness between stars. Humanity had kept its promise to protect the innocent. But more importantly, it had learned that survival sometimes meant becoming something greater than what you were before. The age of the harvesters was over. The age of the guardians had begun.